You've seen this map before. The neighborhoods on one side of the tracks. The school districts. The cafeteria at 12:05, sorted table by table. And somewhere in your head, you quietly filed the explanation. People must want this. So here's a city where nobody does. Not one resident in this simulation wants segregation. Every single one is genuinely happy to be outnumbered on their own street. And I'm going to let you watch this city segregate itself anyway. The city is a simple grid. 690 residents, two kinds, call them the ambers and the teals, split exactly evenly, plus a scattering of empty homes. Each resident follows one rule. Look at your 8 surrounding neighbors. If too few of them are your kind, pack up and move to a random empty home. That's it. No mayor, no zoning, no plan. The only question is how demanding that rule is, what fraction of like me a resident insists on before moving. And you've just seen the result, a city carved into solid blocks. So, for the map to shatter like this, how demanding did each resident have to be? 90% like me? 70? Half? Lock in a number. 1/3. Each resident is happy as long as just a third of their neighbors are like them. Flip that around. Every resident in this city is perfectly content to be a minority on their own street, outnumbered 2-1. That's not a bigot's rule. That's, I don't mind being outnumbered. I'd just rather not be almost the only one. Honestly, that might be your rule. And it's about to unmix an entire city. Day 0. A statistically perfect mix. The average street is basically 50-50, and more than 8 in 10 residents are already happy where they are. Only about 1 in 5 wants to move at all. Watch what those few moves do. Tick 1. Tick 2. The average street just passed 60% same type. Tick 4. Past 70. 5 ticks in, 93% of all the moving this city will ever do has already happened. The blocks are forming, and at every step, almost everyone reports being satisfied. Then it slows to a trickle. A straggler here, a straggler there, hunting for a street they can live with. Tick 12. The last unhappy resident finds a spot, settles in, and the city goes silent. Nobody wants to move anymore, which means nobody ever will. These blocks are permanent. The final tally, the average street went from an even mix to 3/4 same type. Nearly 30% of residents now have 0 neighbors of the other kind, 20 times more than when we started. And the total cost of all this? 310 moves in a city of 690. Less than half a move per resident unmixed the whole map. So how does a preference this mild do that? Because no move happens in a vacuum. When one amber leaves a mostly teal street, every amber left behind just lost an ally, and some of them tip below their own threshold. Meanwhile, the street they land on just got one amber more, which can nudge a teal over the edge at the other end. Each perfectly reasonable move manufactures the next one. A preference held quietly by individuals becomes a cascade owned by no one. The map ends up expressing an intention that doesn't exist in any single head. Okay, a third splits the city. So let's turn the dial down and make everyone less demanding. How low does the demand have to go before the city stays mixed? 30%? 20? 10? Commit to a guess. At 1/4, just 1 in 4 neighbors like me. The city churns a little and stays mixed. Blurry, mottled, but mixed. Now nudge the dial one single notch to 26%. Same city, same starting map. And it tips. The blocks come back, and the share of residents who never see the other group jumps 2.5 times, from about 12% to 29%. 1 point of pickiness, invisible in any individual, flips the entire map. Now those exact numbers belong to this grid in this simulation, not to human beings. The point isn't 26. The point is that there is a cliff, and it sits at a demand this mild. And the classic kicker, ask for a 50-50 street. Just don't put me in the minority. Still nobody wanting segregation, and the city drives itself to near total separation. Average street, 88% same type. 61% of residents never see the other group at all. Now the honest part, because this is where people overclaim. This simulation does not explain your city. Real cities had redlining, lending discrimination, zoning, economics, deliberate forces this model doesn't even contain. Here, moving costs nothing and destinations are random. Real life is nothing like that. What the model shows is scarier in a quieter way. It's the counterfactual. Erase all of that, every law, every cost, every act of malice. Keep nothing but one mild preference, and the map can still unmix on its own. And notice the ending. Nobody in the frozen city is unhappy. Every stated preference is satisfied. But nobody objects is not the same as somebody chose this. Micro-contentment, macro-pattern, and the pattern answers to no one. So the next time you see a sorted map, the lunchroom, the group chat, the city, hold off on the easy explanation. The pattern might not be a portrait of what anyone wants. It might be the residue of 1,000 small moves that nobody would call prejudice. And remember, our city didn't drift back. It froze. Patterns like this don't undo themselves. Mixing may need to be maintained, not just permitted. So here's your homework. What's your number? What fraction of people like me would you quietly want before you left the table, the chat, the street? Be honest and tell me in the comments. Because in this city, a third was enough.